actually get through this is to write down a letter to Van. So at 1 o'clock this morning, I sat in this chapel with my laptop in the dark with Van, listening to the Gaither Vocal Band, and I wrote this. I would like to start off by saying what an honor it is to stand here today and say a few words about a man that had been friend to many. I'm writing this at 1 a.m. the morning of the funeral, alone in the funeral home with my buddy laying in state in the chapel. There is a sweet spirit of peace in this place. The lights are dim and old-fashioned hymns are playing in the building, just like you wanted, man. For over 30 years as a funeral service professional, I have written obituaries as I listened intently to families tell me about their loved one. I've written short ones, long ones. I tell every family that I serve that while I didn't know your loved one by the time you leave this conference, I want to feel like I've known them for years. So I listen as they begin to take me on a journey about their loved one. It was 4 years ago today that my family and I came to see them with nothing but a dream and a love for people. We were the new kids on the block. We really didn't know very many people. We were just here a few days and just had taken over as the new owners of what was then called Woodlawn. When in walked Van and Judy. I can honestly say from that moment we shook hands, began to talk, there was an instant connection of hearts. You see, Van and Judy are probably two of the easiest people to love that you will ever meet. And one of these reasons is because they genuinely love you in return. While I could stand here today and talk about this sweet couple, it does fall on me to give words from the heart of my family to the heart of the Breeding family about this dear man. Simply put, we love you as our very own family, and we know that the feeling is mutual. Steady, faithful, humble, hilarious, consistent, stubborn, man of God, lover of people, a Christian gentleman. These are words that immediately come to mind when thinking of the man Van Breeding. Simply put, Van was a good man. When thinking about what I would say today, I looked up the definition of good man, and here's what the dictionary said. A good man acts with integrity, compassion, and a sense of justice. Guided by a strong moral compass, he takes responsibility for his actions, considers the welfare of others, and strives to make a positive difference in the lives of those around him. Having been given that definition, it's safe to say that Van Breeding was a good man. There have been other occasions in my life that I have known what it was to lose someone with the influence that Van had on me. One was the death of my father when I was 20. The other was the death of my pastor, who was my best friend when I was 32. Two men that had great influence and standing in my heart and life. Men that taught me to be a good husband, be the best dad I could be, and most of all, love people. I must confess to you that I was not prepared for the call I got last Tuesday at 10:35 p.m. letting me know that Van had passed and I needed to get to Judy. I was stunned, shocked, deeply saddened because this couldn't be right. He literally was just working a visitation for me at a church. He was telling me how good he was feeling, he hadn't had any back pain that day, and now suddenly gone? Wait, this can't be real. I began to drive down Tipton, racing to Judy as fast as I could, and my mind began to wander. You see, growing up, we had our Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. We had our heroes. Heroes aren't supposed to die. This was a feeling and emotion that I had wrestled with, and suddenly it hit me. I'm feeling an emotion that I had not felt in years, and that was the profound loss of someone that you could safely call a dad figure. You see, my dad never lived to see my successes, my triumphs, my growing in business, and even my walk with God. And it was while driving down Tipton that it hit me. Van had done all this for me. I must confess, I I didn't feel like I had the right to these emotions because he had a blood son that he loved dearly, that got to call him Dad, and I didn't ever want to infringe on that. Then when I arrived at the house and there was Van, I'd tell you, Judy, my focus was to remain strong for you and your family. I had to stay focused on my duty because now I had to take the role of your family funeral director. I was doing good until not long before we left the house. Jimmy, you hugged me and spoke these words to me. Dad, he loved you like a son. I swallowed hard, walked out of the house, taking Van with me, brokenhearted for the family, but my own breakdown was about to happen. I drove away slow, and the dam broke as I realized that my relationship with Van was just like that one of a dad watching his son be successful, something I never got to feel. I wept all the way back to the funeral home as I realized just how much Van and I shared a deep love for each other, not as his employer, but someone who genuinely believed in me and loved my family deeply. Now, Van had a word that I want to focus on just for a few minutes. And that word was simply, wow. You ever heard him say wow? And when he gave you the wow and two thumbs pointed out, you knew he was really pleased. He was there when we bought the funeral home, of which I immediately started a remodel of. He would come by the building and see what was going on and say, wow, all while giving me that smile. Now, I can't tell you how many times I had to tell him, no, Van, you can't go up the scaffolding. No, Van, you can't climb the ladder. No, Van, you can't do that. Because if you knew Van, you understood if something needed to be fixed or done, he was going to find a way to do it, even if it was not necessarily the right way to do it, but he would find a way. The man only knew one gear. Go, 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 go. I remember about 2 weeks after taking over, I was in the back. I knew nothing about a crematory. All I knew is it wasn't firing and I was frustrated. Van walks in, looks at me and says, let's go look at it. We walked to the back. He reached for a 6-foot ladder, which he was determined to climb up and get on the roof of the crematory. Of course, I immediately informed him that he would not be going on top of the crematory. Just tell me what to do and I will go. He looked at me and said, well, we have to see if we're getting spark. Unscrew the spark plug and hold that wire and let me know if you feel something when I push the button. What did you just say? I said, no, Van, we're not going to do that. To which he explained, it won't hurt. Don't fear electricity. It's just a jolt. We have to know if it's firing. Of course, down the ladder I came and I stood there as he gave that classic smile and laughing. I knew from that moment, Van thought he could fix anything or diagnose anything, even at the expense of electrocuting his new boss. Now, if you knew Van, you knew he had the greatest smile and laugh, a smile that meant so much to me these past 4 years. As the business grew and Van started to see me making many changes, he was always my biggest fan, always using the same word, wow. I remember when we were thinking about buying the Scottsburg location. I would bounce ideas off him and talk business and money and budget. Now, if you knew Van, you know that he had the ability to take a penny and squeeze blood out of Lincoln's nose. He gave me sound advice and direction, and the day we closed on the purchase, Van gave me 2 thumbs up, pointed out, wow. Then last July, when we bought the Brownstown location, there he was again, smiling, wow. I admit, as I get older, my wife calls it midlife crisis, I'm becoming a classic car collector. Van loved cars. He would be the first one I would bring a new car to show him. He would walk outside, put his arm around me, start it up. Wow. Oh, how Van loved my wife and boys. I think it's safe to say he loved the boys like his own grandkids. Hayden would often go to their house, eat lunch, and just sit and talk to Van. When Chandler was dating Meredith, Van would often say, Chan, when are you going to ask that girl to marry you? We can go in the chapel and do it right now if y'all want to. One time Chan replied, well, I'm trying to save up money for a ring. Van said, how much is it? Chan said, well, I'm trying to save $3,000. Van says, that ain't no problem, and pulls the biggest wad of cash out of his pocket that you've ever seen. Let's get this thing going, Chan. To which Chan laughed and said, no, sir, but thank you. About a month later, Chan and Meredith were engaged. Van smiled and simply said, wow. Betsy, he loved you. He loved to watch you sing. He loved to listen to you sing. I would venture to say, like he would be proud of his own daughter. Van was always quick to like anything we posted on Facebook. I didn't even know he had an Instagram account until anyway. If it was something we were working on, or if Betsy was out singing at a conference, or I was preaching somewhere, Van was always quick to say, wow. As an employee, Van was as good as they came, ready to help, ready to serve. You see the stool at the head of the casket with the picture on it? That's where Van rested in between each person that would approach our doors. Quick to jump up, open the doors with a smile. Welcome to Christensen Family Funeral Home, he would say. There's no telling the thousands of people that have been welcomed by his face, his smile, and his humble demeanor. I will say this, Van was the best PR man that a funeral home owner could ask for. I would hear him telling people, isn't this place beautiful? Can you believe how good the Christensens are doing? Even going so far as to making sure people knew that they could transfer their funeral home prearrangements from one funeral home to ours. I'd say, Van, and he'd say, they've got to know, they've got to know. While that made me cringe a few times, I confess it did make me smile. He loved to hear me preach, telling me that he wanted to know what Sunday I'd be preaching so that they could come, and they did, second row. Our eyes would meet while I would be preaching, and he'd be giving me the Baptist nod. You see, as a Pentecostal, I get a little excited, and Van would say, and I knew the Baptist nod. He was in agreement with what I was saying. He would always walk up to me after and say, wow, that's the best preaching I ever heard. Now, I'm sure I was the best Pentecostal preacher he ever heard because he loved his Pastor Kenny. I guess you were his favorite Baptist, so we'll share that sentiment together. I have said all this to say this. That dear man in that casket gave me something that I was missing for a long time. A dad figure to believe in me, love me, be proud of me, and give me the occasional wow of approval. You see, Van had every reason to brag on himself, every reason to talk about his accomplishments and his successes. But I never heard him make it about him. He wanted to know how we were doing. Did we need anything? Were we okay? Like dads do. Thank you, Van. Judy, you and Van were the perfect example of a loving couple. You just can't say Van without saying Judy. It's just a team. I hope I'm okay for telling this. When we were at the house, Judy said that Van would say, come sit on my lap. She'd say, you're too skinny, I'll break your legs. He'd say, no, come on. I said, Judy, are you telling me Van was a romantic? She said, oh, yeah. As a team, you have impacted many families' lives forever. Your ministry, your integrity, and your Christian walk will never be forgotten. Your encouragement, your love, your steadiness will always be treasured. I know that this is a hard day, but it's going to be okay. We will see that smile again. So I want to close with this. It was 1968. Judy was 9 months pregnant. Van was out working under a car. It was up on blocks. The blocks broke and down came the car on Van. This is a true story. He loved to tell it. The ambulance came and Van was pronounced dead on the scene. The ambulance started making its way to the funeral home. This is documented. While taking the cot out of the car at the funeral home, Van sat up and asked, "What's going on?" To which the ambulance driver screamed and ran down the road. The funeral director had to take him back to the hospital. You see, God wasn't done with Vander's breeding. Van had things to do, sermons to preach, a family to love, a church to pastor, and lives to touch. Now, I confess, when I got to the funeral home with Van and brought him to the back of the building, that story he loved to tell hit my brain. And I took a few seconds and said out loud, "Now, Van, I love you. But if you're thinking about doing that again, you and I are going to have a problem. So if you're going to do it now while I'm prepared, because if you sit up later, you and I are going to fight." Judy, Jimmy, Callie, Cody, Annalise, and family. Van didn't sit back up, but I have to believe in my heart of hearts it's because when he closed his eyes at 10:18 p.m. at 1776 Sam Circle on this earth, I truly believe when he opened his eyes on the other side and saw what he saw, all he could say was, "Wow." I know I speak for my entire staff when I tell you we loved you, Van Brady. You are forever etched in our hearts. You weren't afraid to die, always telling us you were ready to go, but I guess we just didn't think it would be now. Judy, when I was at your house, you told me that having just worked a visitation, you know Van died doing what he loved. I agree, but I also want to disagree with you just a little bit. He died doing what he loved, but it wasn't anything work-related. It was being in a chair next to his sweetheart. Thank you, Judy, for sharing him with so many of us. Thank you for allowing us in your home and your heart. Paul said, 2 Timothy 4:7-8, "I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me on that day, and not me only, but unto them all who love his appearing." We love you, Van. I want to invite some of my family to come up. Van wanted us to sing. I don't know why. Especially while I'm up here a blubbering idiot. We're probably going to be off key. So we would only do this for me.